This is a podcast about the power of lived experiences, about how stories can shape more human-centered systems, spaces, and services.
Each episode, we sit down with people who are challenging the status quo, leading with empathy, and helping others through their work and their stories.
We're Farah and Megan, and this is Collected by Unum Co. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Collected. We're really excited about today's episode because Megan and I are going to take you through our journey. We're going to talk a little bit about what brought us together, where we started, and some of the things that we're really excited about. So thanks for joining.
Yes, thank you. Do you want me to kick it off or do you want to start?
Yeah, I would love that. Maybe if you want to share a little bit about what you were doing before we joined forces and a little bit about your why and why this work is so important to you.
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to take you a little far back here. It was my first year of university. I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. It had been a couple years of trying to figure out what was going on. And to get the diagnosis was a big relief because now I knew what was going on with me.
That was a 2-year process, though. You kind of glazed right over that.
Yes.
But I mean, that's not a small amount of time to get a diagnosis.
Yeah, 2 years. It took a lot of advocacy work and self-advocacy work along with my parents' advocacy to really get to that diagnosis. So I get the diagnosis and I'm in my first year at university, and I really see that there's no support on campus for people with digestive diseases. And I didn't know anybody else with a digestive disease, let alone somebody with a functional digestive issue like IBS. There were so many other support groups on campus, like for diabetes, for students going through cancer, students with MS, you name it, there was a support group. So I had gone to the accessibility services and was like, hey, why don't you have a digestive disease support group? I need this. And I ended up creating one. I worked with one of the coordinators there, and I actually became really heavily involved in the accessibility services at the University of Guelph. I became a peer helper, and I did a lot of work with other students who had accessibility issues. I created the support group, and I just saw how powerful it was to bring a group of people to talk about what we were going through. And I saw this real need to talk about it more. And so then I started a blog, the Gut Gazette, and I just became really passionate about advocacy and self-advocacy and helping people figure out their own journeys. And while I was doing that, I was going through school, and then I just loved being able to write and talk and communicate with others. So I was like, maybe PR is my path. So I ended up going into PR after doing a postgrad in PR and communications. And I dabbled in a few different industries, but I always loved working in the healthcare space, especially in patient public affairs and hearing patient stories and figuring out how to take those stories and make change and impact. But then in 2017, I left the corporate world and I started my own agency called Bloom. And I did social media, marketing, branding for a variety of different clients. A few of them were healthcare related. And then that's when I met you, Farah. So maybe you can share a little bit about what you did before we talk about our meet cute.
Yes, let's. So, yes, Megan and I met when I was working in the pharma industry. I spent more than 15 years in life sciences, in lots of different roles, in advocacy, in communications, in patient experience. And similar to you, I had a background in PR and healthcare communications. And I spent all of this time learning about how decisions get made, how pharma products are really brought to patients from the clinical and research and development stage all the way through to launch. And I started to see how patient experiences can really influence how products, programs, conversations, and how they can really have impact. And I think seeing and being part of the caregiving team, like for my parents who have chronic illnesses, and seeing how people were often not part of the decision making processes. And these stories were really never making it to decision making tables. That was really something that sat with me and that I continued to think about. And that was something that came to my mind when we met, because I remember at the time I was trying to, I'm going to use the word convince, but I was trying to persuade my marketing team at the time that we should be thinking about and listening to patient conversations in social spaces and in digital communities. And I was kind of on this mission to prove that there were people and patients having conversations that we just weren't aware of and that we weren't listening to in pharma. And that's where we met, because I came across your blog. And I know when we talk about blogs now, they seem so, they seem like such so long ago, a thing of the past. But it was really, that was almost one of the first ways that people were sharing their experiences online and building community with others in some of those spaces. So I reached out, and we met, and we started to really talk about how you were creating support for others who were going through what you were going through. And I think that was one of the things that was so interesting, was not only that you had this experience, you were putting your experience out there for others to benefit from, to learn from. And through our conversations, I think I was really introduced to so many other women and people who were going through digestive health conditions, and having community and conversation online. And I think when we started to talk about this together, we just kept thinking there's something that we can do here. There's more impact that we can create together.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember when I got that email from you, it was just like so random. This woman named Farah reaching out from a pharma company. And
Yeah.
I remember saying to my husband, like, this just seems so intense. And I was so nervous to
Like,
meet with
she
you.
speaks such a corporate language.
I was so nervous. And I came back from that lunch and I was like, oh my gosh, I really like Farah. She's so cool. I want to be her friend. And I mean, I know that it was mutual, the feeling, because here we are now. But,
Mm-hmm.
we had a couple projects and then we just kept in touch and we would go out for lunch or coffee and we would
Right.
always talk about what our goals were and like what we wanted to do in the patient space. And we were very aligned all the time. And there was always something there. And we always wanted to do something together.
Yeah.
Remember, we even had that mastermind. So
Yeah,
Farah
we
and
did. We
I
were part of a
were,
mastermind. That's
yeah, we were in a
right.
mastermind for about a year during COVID. I think it was probably 2021 with a few
Yeah.
other women. And Farah was still in her role at the time. And we talked about what we were doing currently in our roles or our careers and what our aspirations were. And it was really
Yeah.
blue sky thinking. But yeah, we just always had this want to work together because we just felt like we could really do something cool together. And then it was I had just had my second daughter and we were out for lunch and we just started ideating again about, okay, wouldn't it be so cool to do this? Wouldn't it be so cool to do
Yeah.
that? And then we're like, we just need to make this happen. And
Totally.
then the stars aligned.
Yeah, I think we really just believed that there could be something where we would bring together our worlds and our experiences, your experience working in communications and marketing, your lived experience as a patient advocate, this world of digital communities and meaningful storytelling. We really felt like we could put these together in a way that wasn't necessarily being done right now, and bring our creativity also to the table. So that's really the origin story of Unum.
We're patient experience storytellers, and we really love listening to patients and gathering insights in order to make impact. And with our podcast Collected, this is something we wanted to do since day one, and we're really excited to be doing it now. And what you can expect from this podcast is stories from people who are creating impact across a variety of industries, not just healthcare.
That's right. And you'll hear stories from patient advocates, from caregivers, from healthcare professionals, but also from people who have had really interesting experiences and turned those experiences into incredible change in whatever industry they're in. We've learned so much from watching other industries. For example, we've seen so many interesting examples of community building in beauty, in wellness, in spaces where we think healthcare can
Hospitality.
actually benefit from and learn from. So we're really excited to share some of those stories with all of you.
And it's really cool to be able to learn from other industries. I think that when you look at brands outside of the healthcare space, you see that there are a lot of times where they'll interact or they'll intersect. And we don't always see that in healthcare. And we want to be able to change that because it is really cool to be able to learn from other industries and take what they're doing that's working and bring it into our own industry. That's kind
Mm-hmm.
of our goal for Collected. And we also just love having conversations with people who are doing cool, impactful things. And
Yeah.
we have them on the daily, really, and we wanted to be able to have a space where we could capture these conversations and these stories and share them with everybody.
Yeah. And so sometimes you'll hear guests on our episode. Sometimes you'll hear from the two of us. Sometimes you'll hear our own reflections on what we've been doing, some of the behind the scenes pieces of building a company. We'll talk a lot about the future of healthcare storytelling. It's something that you said, Megan, that we're really interested in and that we see a lot of opportunity in. And sometimes you'll just hear short episodes on one idea or one challenge.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, we'll always come back to really the premise of Collected, which is to share stories that matter and share them in a way that really moves us forward.
Mhm. Thank you for listening up to this point. We really appreciate your support. And if you could like our podcast, comment on it, or share it with a friend, we would really appreciate it. And if you ever have any ideas for future episodes, we are open. We would love to hear your thoughts and suggestions. So feel free to send us an email. And we are excited to have you join us on this journey.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. And we're excited to collect more stories.